Hey guys, today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions. On the screen you're going to see I've given you a slight overview. If you want to pause the video, you can read the overview of how we add and subtract fractions. This should be a review for you from the years past. So today we're going to focus on adding with like denominators, adding with unlike denominators, subtracting with like denominators, and subtraction with unlike denominators. So make sure to remember that when we're adding and subtracting fractions, you have to have a common denominator. Alright, so in your foldable, if you'll flip with me to the first flap, that should be adding and subtracting fractions. We're going to focus on the top when we have like fractions. Like fractions means our denominator is the same. Okay, so if we have 3/5, let's show on the model, we have 3/5, so 1, 2, 3, okay, plus 1/5, so add one more. Altogether, we have 4/5. Okay, so let's figure out how we did that. Okay, so what you do is you find a common denominator. If there's not one, this one happens to be the same. You bring over your common denominator and you add your numerator. So 3 plus 1 is 4. And we can see from the model that that works. Okay, so the same thing goes with subtracting. Make sure that you have a common denominator. We do, so we have sevenths. So we started out with 5 sevenths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you're doing this on your model. And we're subtracting 2 sevenths. Okay, so we're subtracting 1, 2. So how many are left? Okay, that's the key here. How many are left when we're subtracting? Okay, so we have 3 out of how many total? 7. So again, pull over your denominator and you subtract your numerators. 5 minus 2 is 3. So that's what we do if we have a common denominator. Now let's look at what we do when we have an uncommon denominator. So if we look at 1/3 and 5/9, we can model this by breaking this into thirds. So we have 1/3, and then we have 5/9. So really you're going to look at how many ninths do you have altogether. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 ninths altogether. Okay, so now let's look at the shortcut as to how we can do it by using a common denominator. Okay, so if we look at 3 and 9, which are our denominators, and we find the least common denominator. So we look at our multiples of 3. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12. And then our multiples of 9, 9, 18, 27. Okay, and we see that they have 9 in common. So our least common denominator is 9. So we want to get both of them into 9. So notice our second one is already there. So let's look at the first one. How did we get from 3 to 9? Well, we multiplied by 3. So if I multiply the denominator by 3, I have to multiply the numerator by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Now, we do it just like we did when we had a common denominator before. So we add our numerators. 3 plus 5 is 8. And then we just bring over our common denominator, which is 8 ninths. So you can see the model and doing it the shorter way work the same way. Okay, so let's look at the subtraction problem. The first thing we have to remember, so we can write in our summary, is don't forget to use our integer rules. Now, why is that important? Okay, it's important because we can see here we have a negative, negative. Okay, remember when we're adding and subtracting, we keep the first one, change subtraction to addition, and change the sign of the second one so this negative becomes positive. Okay, alright, so we simply now have 1/2 plus 7/8. Okay, if we modeled that, we have 1/2. We have 7/8, which is a little bit harder to draw. Okay, so we have 7 here. If we divide this up, that makes 4/8. So 7 and 4, we have 11/8. Okay, so now let's do it using a common denominator. So our common denominator between 2 and 8 is 8. Okay, so how did we get from 2 to 8? Well, we multiply by 4. So 1 times 4 is 4, plus this is already an 8, so keep it that way. Okay, add your numerators. 4 plus 7 is 11, and then keep your denominator, which is 8. So improper fraction-wise, we have 11/8. Now, we probably don't want to leave it that way, so I'm going to go over here. So remember, we do 11 divided by the denominator. So how many times will 8 go into 11? That's 1. So 1 times 8 is 8. How many are left over? We have 3 left over. Okay, that becomes my numerator. This is my denominator. So kind of sit this on top of that. So we have 1 and 3/8 is our simplified answer. Okay, so that is how we subtract using unlike denominators. Alright, so here's a different way that you can look at it. It's called the fraction butterfly. Okay, so it's a pretty cool way if you know how to use it. Okay, so if you are complicated and get confused with common denominators, this is just a different method. Okay, so you set up your fraction butterfly. So we have 2/3. This is going to be 2/3 plus 3/8. Okay, so how this works is you're going to cross multiply, which means you're going to do 2 times 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. And then you cross multiply the other way. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, and then to get our denominator, which is going to be the common denominator, we multiply our denominators together. So 3 times 8 is 24. So then we use what we cross multiply, 16 plus 9, and then our denominator is 24. So 16 plus 9 is 25. 24. So again, that is not simplified. So how many times will 24 go into 25? It'll go once. We subtract, we get 1. So that becomes our numerator. What we divide by becomes our denominator. So it's 1 and 1/24. So that is also a different way that you can add or subtract fractions. Alright, so if that does not make sense to you, just ignore it and just do it the normal way. Okay, this is just an extra tip in case you want to use it. Okay, this is the same exact thing. It's called crisscross applesauce. So if you can't figure out that least common denominator, you can do what we just did. Multiply, cross multiply, add those, and then multiply our bottoms. And then make sure at the end, this is not right, so make sure we simplify. So 40 will go into 51 once. If I subtract, I get 11. So that becomes my numerator. 40 becomes my denominator. Okay? So again, just a different way of looking at it. Crisscross applesauce means we crisscross, and then we multiply our denominators. Okay? Alright, so let's practice a few of these. On the next page in your journal, you can write these along with me. If you want to pause the video to make sure you write them down, and then we'll work them together. Okay, now that you've written them down, let's look at them. Okay, so we have 3/4 plus 1/5. Okay, we can't do anything with them until we get a common denominator. If we look at our multiples of our denominator, we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Over here we have 5, 10, 15, 20. So the best one is 20. So we want to get them both to 20ths. So I'm going to work up here. Paper keeps moving. Okay, so how did we get from 4 to 20? Well, we multiplied by 5. Remember, what you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, now how did we get from 5 to 20? We multiplied by 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. So we have to do the numerator. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we simply add them like we started with. So add our numerators. 15 plus 4 is 19. Carry over our denominator. So 19 20ths. And remember, simplify if you need to. On that one, we do not need to. Okay, let me move this back over. It keeps moving on me. Okay, let's do another one. So we have 5 6 plus 2 18ths. Our common denominator, if we make our list, is going to be 18. Okay, so this one's already like I want it. So let's get the other one into 18ths. How do we get from 6 to 18? We multiply by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 plus 2 is 17. And then carry over our denominator. So 17 18ths. Okay, I'm going to let you do the next two on your own. So pause the video and do them. And when you get back, we will check them. Okay, so if you've done this, you should have gotten 4 eighths plus 1 eighth gives you 5 eighths. Okay, if you've done this one, you should have gotten 7 21st plus 2 over 21 equals 9 over 21, which you can reduce. If you divide them both by 3, you get 3 sevenths. All right, so here's some subtracting ones. Now, we don't have to use our integer rules here because it's not negative, negative. We can just keep it like it is. So let's find our common denominator. So 3 and 6, our common denominator, if we make our list, is 3, 6, 9, 12. We have 6, 12, 18. So the least common one is 6. So going to 6, how do we get from 3 to 6? We multiplied by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4 minus, this one's already there, 4 6 minus 4 6, so 4 minus 4 is 0. And then bring over our denominator, so 0 6, or simply, that's the same thing as just 0. Okay? Alright, so we have 3 fifths and 5 15ths. What's our common denominator? 15. So 5 times what's 15? 3. So 3 times 3 is 9 minus 5 15ths. So 9 minus 5 is 4. And bring over our 15ths. Okay? If you want to try the next two on your own, so pause the video and do them. And then you'll come back and we'll check them together. Alright, so your common denominator here should be 12. So 9 twelfths minus 8 twelfths, so you get 1 12th. Okay, over here it should be 14. So 7 14ths minus 6 14ths, so you got 1 14th over here. Alright, so we're going to stop right there and we're going to go to video number 2 for today.